everybody. Welcome to another episode of Embracing Your Season. I'm your host, Paige Clingenpeel. I want to thank you all so much for listening to this show. Your feedback has been invaluable, and we thank you so much for that. I'd love to hear more from you. So if you're interested, go ahead and hit me up on my email at paigeclingenpeel@gmail.com. Now, as a reminder to those that are listening, we have a YouTube page. You can find it on HomeWord YouTube page and check out all the episodes that we have from Embracing Your Season. You get to see our pretty faces. How cool is that, right? Also, every podcast platform has Embracing Your Season. So I would love for you to listen, follow, leave a review. We just want to hear from you because we want this to get out to everybody out there to be equipped and encouraged. Today, we have an awesome guest. Now, this guest has been brought to me by two of my dear friends who've actually experienced one of her retreats. This retreat is coming up. In fact, it's called Weekend of Hope Retreat. It has been life-changing for my friends, so I wanted to make sure I had this individual on my show so that you can learn more about the community she has created, not only for herself, but for all the parents out there that might be going through a season of having a special needs kiddo. So my guest today is Julie Hornok. She is passionate about empowering women to find grace, acceptance, and strength amidst their toughest circumstances that life has to offer. Julie has written a book. It's called United in Autism, Finding Strength Inside the Spectrum. So in this book, she gets to share stories from parents that have autistic kiddos that are all across the spectrum. Julie has co-founded the nonprofit Labeled in Love, which you'll hear more during our conversation, to embrace and strengthen families with special needs by providing connective experiences and educational resources, igniting personal growth and systemic change within the community. I know you're going to love this conversation. So join me now as I invite Julie to tell us a little bit more about Labeled in Love. Well, I'm so excited for this conversation today with you, Julie. So thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely. I am thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
So one of the cool things about you being on the show is that I know two people who have experienced your Weekend of Hope retreat, where they said that it was absolutely life-changing. So tell us a little bit more about Labeled in Love and this Weekend of Hope and why it can be such a life-changing experience.
Absolutely. I think as moms of kids with special needs, we isolate ourselves. And so slowly over time, things offend us or we get hurt or things are said to us and we just kind of pull back or we don't have time and we're focused on our kiddos. And so without even realizing it, we isolate ourselves and we have this just feeling of loneliness and we don't even know how to describe it because our lives are so busy. But whenever we come to something like the Weekend of Hope retreat, we realize, oh my gosh, this is what I've been missing. And so we really cultivate the retreat. Every single moment is for connection and to connect special needs mamas with other special needs mamas that will help them be each other's lifelines throughout the rest of their lives. And so they can support each other from there going forward. And I think there's just something absolutely beautiful about having a go-to friend.
Mm-hmm. So is this something that has just been a passion on your heart, or is this a personal experience that you were leaning into the special needs communities?
Yeah, my daughter has autism. And when she was diagnosed, I just put my head down and just started with 30 hours a week of therapy. And we just went. And it was so all encompassing and overwhelming. And I was so focused on just helping her, allowing her to move forward and move forward. And you really do block out everything else in your life and everything else falls to shambles, except for your focus is on your child. And when my daughter was probably about 4 or 5, and then my youngest got into kindergarten, and had like my first day by myself as a mom, and so I did kind of what every mom does is I was like, I'm gonna go to Target and just like walk around like with coffee.
Yes,
It's gonna be
girl.
like amazing. Yeah. And so but I was sitting there in that parking lot and I just like I should have been excited, but I just had this like feeling of emptiness. And I was like just praying, I'm like, God, like what do you want me to do with this time that I've been given now, the fact that my daughter is doing a little bit better, where I have space in my life where I could add something. And I felt just very strongly that I was supposed to do an event for moms of kids with special needs. And not even like, I didn't even have any big master plan. He always has the master plan, but I don't have the master plan. And so my idea was just, okay, I'm going to put on an event. And we did. I put on with a bunch of other, I always have like amazing women that help. It's never me alone, but women, we got together and we celebrated 100 moms for a whole afternoon with
Wow.
massages by the pool. They got to eat. They had an inspirational speaker, and it was fabulous. But
Mm,
then we thought, okay, we got to do this again. Like they got a break. They loved it, but they need a break every year. So we gave them another break. And then the third year, I was getting into my car, and these two moms are just kind of like sauntering over towards me, but they're like just holding on to each other and they're bawling. And I'm like, oh my, like what's going on here? And they just said, we had to tell you that we would not be standing here today if we had not met each other at your event 2 years ago. And that was kind of when a light bulb went off for me because I was like, oh, like this is a bigger deal. This is life changing in a way that I didn't anticipate. And so we really started to cultivate intentional space for these moms so that they can get to know each other, so they can community build, so that they can feel beautiful. You know, those special needs moms get the leftovers very, very often. Their kids are down at the end of the hall. We want them to understand and know that someone has thought of them. And so then I was able to join with other really talented women and kind of start Labeled and Loved and do this on a bigger level. So it was really
hmm
exciting.
hmm So you spoke to even just about the community or the lack of community
Mhm.
that special needs mamas have just because they isolate. So for the parents out there that maybe don't have the special needs kiddos, can you tell us a little bit more about why they are isolating or why it is so laborious for them to focus on their kiddos with special needs?
The need is so great, and every single day is figuring out something new. So every single day is figuring out schooling and how that works. And the systems in the world just aren't made for our kids. And so we have to navigate and figure out creatively new ways to go in. And even when there are things that are put in place, we're having to fight for those things. And it's just exhausting. I mean, I think as a typical parent, if you think of like when your child is having the hardest of hard times, you're drained. When they hurt, you're hurting 15 times worse. And with special needs parents, our kids are hurting more often. And the hurt goes way deeper because it goes back to an identity. I mean, we prepared to have a kid, bring those kids up for 18 years, and then send them off to college and then let them go into adulthood and then go on with things. But that's not what has happened. We've had to come into this mental shift of the fact that we are now caretakers for life. And so there is no end. There is not necessarily college. There isn't necessarily sending them off. We may be caretaking, we may be changing diapers for life. They may be in the same stage watching the same movies for life. And all of that just takes a serious emotional toll on a mom because no matter what you do, if your child succeeding is out of your control. And that
Mm-hmm.
really is hard to
Mm-hmm.
do, you know.
And
As
I think
moms,
we
we
can
try and do,
relate to that. Yeah,
yeah.
like the fact that we don't control the success of our kids. We can lead them, we can
Mm-mm.
guide them, but we ultimately it's well in some cases it is within their control. Other cases like with disabilities, like they don't necessarily have the control.
Mm-hmm.
What was interesting with my friend, we had babies at the same time. It was both like
Mm-hmm.
we had babies before, so it's like we've gone through this motherhood stage, so we kind of knew what the expectations was, milestone development, things like that. And then what she started
Yeah.
noticing is that her child was not making the same milestones that my child was, because that's that
Mm-hmm.
reminder, right? When you have a toddler and before, you kind of forget what are they supposed to hit at what age, that kind of thing. But she had that comparison right there. That's when they got the diagnosis. And then she had that realization, you even spoke to this, of like, I need to take care of myself because I
Mm-hmm.
have to be able to take care of this child that will be forever in need of me being present for them. So that actually led her to a whole different health journey, even like she started taking
Mm-hmm.
care of her body more so that she had more energy. But I wonder if there is a grief component. I think you spoke to this, but if you could speak a
Yeah.
little bit more of the fact that your child isn't what you had planned. Can you tell us a little
Yeah.
bit more about that?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest shift, and that's something that we help at our events. We help the moms walk through is that they have to actually recognize, name, and put it out there what their expectations were for. And this isn't even for special needs parents, but it just hits really hard and really fast with special needs parents. But you have to recognize like every parent goes into parenting with expectations. There's things that we had during our childhood that we loved that we want to continue with our kids. And then there's things that we had during our childhood that we didn't love that we don't want to do. And so we take all of those and we put this all on our children without even realizing it. You know, if I played basketball in high school. I want my kid to play basketball because I want them to have that same fabulous experience. But each of our kids is so unique and so different. And it really is a shift of grieving what you thought your life was going to look like to going forward and just choosing to find the joy and the gratitude in the little things each day that they can do and the experiences you can have. And I remember for my daughter, it's my only girl. And I had visions and dreams of like, I never got to go get my nails done with my mom. And I always thought when I have a daughter, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go get my nails done with my daughter. And so I had this daughter who wouldn't sit still, and there was no way she was getting her nails done when she was young. And so I was watching the peers all going and doing that. And it was just really hard to be around. So I remember thinking one day, like, I'm going to do, what can she do? Let's focus on what my child can do. And you know what she loved to do every day after school is there was a hill right next to the school, and she liked to barrel roll down it.
Oh,
And so
fun,
I thought,
yeah.
yeah, I was like, you know what? I have to put aside what other parents think and I want to have fun and enjoy my child. And so I just took her out and we just started barrel rolling together down the hill right in front of everybody. And it was
Wow.
fantastic. She thought it was fun. I thought it was fun. Everybody thought I was crazy.
Wow, I love that. That's such a fun memory, not only for you, but for her as well. And
Yeah.
let's be honest, maybe that actually impacted the parents around you. Like, I know we have the judgmental parents, like they're all out there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But also the other parents are like, I want to join that. That sounds like so much fun to just walk alongside your child in that way. Speak a
Yeah.
little bit more about the judgment of other parents. I'm
Oh
sure
my
that you
gosh.
feel that,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, because especially with lots of our kids have a behavior, and the behavior is
Mhm.
not within our control. It doesn't matter if we are working around the clock on behavior. It's because they are literally melting down inside and they can't handle it. So this is not like a matter of I'm going to teach you to sit still. Some bodies can't sit still. And so some kids are dealing with sensory stuff. And I had an experience just like that with my daughter where she had actually said her first word, which was super exciting. And so she was like almost 4, and she said her first word, and it was like, oh my gosh, she's going to talk, And so I had called my husband. We rarely went out of the house because she was a runner. And so I called him and I said, okay, I just want to do it. I just want to go out to eat. And so we just went to a place that was, an at the counter place. Right. And so we go up to the counter, we order, and then, I just let her choose. I was like, she can just choose wherever she wants to sit. Well, she gets in this booth, and then I can see she's starting to get overwhelmed. Like the smells are different, the atmosphere is different, the noise level is different. And so she just stands up on the booth and like grasps the sides of the tables, and she just starts to jump. And it was like little cute jumps. And then it was like bigger jumps. And I had a decision, people started to look, people were starting to notice, and I had a decision to make. And that decision was just like, was I going to parent for other people, or was I going to parent for what was best for my daughter? And I
That's
knew
good.
she was keeping herself from just melting down in that moment. And so I just kind of smiled real big and really loudly looked at her and said, good jumping, Lizzie. And it was like the mouths just dropped. But I thought like I was going to freak out and just take my food to go after that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was weird. I just had a feeling of peace. Like, this is what it's supposed to be. We're supposed to
Mm.
be parenting for the best of our kid, whatever that scenario is, and pushing aside that judgment, because that judgment doesn't matter. I'm never going to see those people again, but who cares or who needs to feel loved is my daughter. And that's my job to do that.
Absolutely. And I think that's a truth across every parenting spectrum,
Yeah.
right? It's like
Yeah.
we need to do what is best for our kids. And I remember moments where I I was sitting I have 4 kids, right? And they would not
Mhm.
always act appropriately and people
Yeah.
would stare.
Mhm.
And I literally want to be like, "Are you kidding? Have you never had kids before?" So I
Right.
love
Yeah.
that mindset of like, y'all, I'm doing what's best for my kiddo at this point.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about helping our kids just be educated on special needs. I mean, when they're little, like they don't see the
Mhm.
differences necessarily, but then they're so
Right.
curious and they start asking questions. And so
Yeah.
when we as parents that don't necessarily have that same experience, how can we help our kids speak, add language, or love well the moms, dads, families of special needs kiddos?
Yeah, and I think the way the kids do it is best. Ask the
Mhm.
questions and really begin to teach your children from the beginning that everybody is different and that we like to learn and embrace other people's differences. And so if you see a child that maybe is in a wheelchair, it's great to go up to that child and say, hey, why are you in this wheelchair? It's simple. It's just asking and allowing them to explain, or asking them, oh, how do you feel about that? And asking them to just share and begin talking, because the biggest thing that I think the disability community feels is ignored. And so
Okay.
they want you to come up and engage with them and learn how you can become a friend to this person. If you have a child with the autism or in your classroom, learn how you can engage in their world because they have trouble coming into your world. So it's just a mindset of, this person is not less just because they're different, just because they're not like you. They're not a lesser of a person. And I think that's what our kids want to feel, and our families want to feel, that we want to feel that people want to learn how to engage, because we know it's harder. It's harder for us too. For that moment, it's harder for you, but it's harder for us for life. So we just
Right.
appreciate the effort of anyone doing that.
Yeah, and see, that's where I think I get a little bit uncomfortable, is because I wouldn't want my kid to walk up to someone that has a mole on their face and be like, "What is that?"
Yeah.
And it's like, just because there's physical differences. And so it's hard to determine, like, is this something that we feel comfortable asking those questions? I love my kids are curious, right? But
Yeah.
when it comes to, so that's the physical disabilities, but you're right, the behavioral things, which are more internal, so we can't always tell, is this like a disability? Is this a disorder? Or is this just a child that doesn't have behavior modification in their home, or emotional regularity, or something along those lines? So how do you think we can help, even like adults too, determine
Mhm.
when is it okay to ask those questions, and when is it like, no, we probably need to keep it to ourselves?
Well, I think if someone's in the middle of a meltdown or they look overwhelmed,
Okay, yep,
you
that
kind of
makes
want to back
sense.
off. But if they're just kind of there and they're just sitting, it's really, since as a typical person, we can probably read body language, and that's really probably it. Like if they're looking overwhelmed and stressed, maybe that's not the right time. But I do think it's a beautiful thing then to go back, so if there's a child in a class having a meltdown, then it's time to go back and just say, hey, I want to get to know you better. Tell me what upsets you, or tell me what overwhelms you in class, so, or if it's kids, let's just keep it simple. You want to play. Like, I can't tell you how many times and how painful it is for a mom as a child with special needs to see my child isolated because she doesn't know how or have the skills to play with other children. And
Hmm.
I literally, even now that she's in college, I pray every day for just a mother hen, a beautiful person, to come and just kind of take her under their wing and just say, I'm going to like you for you, whatever that looks like. I'm going to like you for you. And I'm just going to engage you and pull you into my world, because that's all they need and that's all they want. They don't want to be left out. They don't want to be isolated. And they want someone that says, even if you have a meltdown every now and again, even if you say something inappropriate or do something inappropriate, I'm still going to love you. And it's kind of
Hmm.
what we all want on a basic level, is we just want to be loved and accepted for the exact person we are. And that's no different for a person with any type of disability.
Yeah. Do you know one of the things I love about, we have a sports program here, it's local. They have an integration league. And actually in our high school, we have an integration league. And so I
Mhm.
love when we do that. We did this at the basketball game the other night. It was senior night, and we had two schools that had this integration league. And so it has able-bodied kids and it has special
Mhm.
disability kids out there playing basketball. And the modeling of just loving those kids well,
Yeah.
I just think is so cool. And it blesses my heart to see that, because we're teaching kids to love each other regardless of skin color, abilities, anything along those lines, gender, any of those things. And so, yeah, I would love to see more of that within our
Yeah.
communities. And I
I
hope that
mean, and
people
even if
continue.
you want to, take it back to faith and to using Jesus as the model, like, he didn't just go to the most popular, typical people out in the world. He always sought after the one that just wasn't fitting in, the one that wasn't appropriate, the one that was pushed away. He always sought that, and he brought nothing but love. There was no judgment, and that's our model. I mean, that's what we need to do, is as people, as humans, and then we need to teach our children to do that. You seek out the one that's struggling, and you know what? Pull them in. You be, a blessing to that person. And it just all around is better for everyone. It blesses the person doing it, and how great for that kid. And there have been several parents over the years with my daughter who have done that for my daughter, where they've invited her to spend the night, when she wasn't, it was really hard for her, but they just said, we're just going to do this for you. And I can't tell you as a mom, oh my gosh, it's the best gift you can give me, is to love my
Oh,
child, you
yeah.
know?
Oh, absolutely. Across the board. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why don't you speak to the mamas that maybe just got their diagnosis or
Okay.
they're just now starting this journey? Like what encouragement
hmm
can you give them?
I think the biggest thing that I did not recognize for a really long time is the life you've been given is going to be the life you're the happiest in. It's going to look completely different for you. Like your version of parenthood is going to be completely and utterly different than anything that you've probably ever seen or experienced. But there is so much joy to be had in it if you'll allow yourself to surrender the expectations that you had for your parenthood, and then also just allow yourself to look every day at your child and find out what can they do, what are they good at, where do you find joy in this type of parenting, and follow that. And it's just that simple. It's a true different type of surrender and giving up that control of trying to make it look normal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I love that line of like, maybe amplify or reduce or not reduce. What's the word? Adjust your expectations,
Yeah.
right? And we
Yeah.
do that with all our kids. Like I know,
hmm
and this is a different level, but my kids all struggle with learning disabilities. I have dyslexia.
hmm
I can't do well in school. And so we have
Yeah.
always had that conversation in the school realm that our brains learn differently. And there is that element that, especially in the school system, you compare yourself to others. Others are getting grades easier, or they're not having to go to the resource room. And so that conversation
hmm
for us in our home is like, you have been designed in a very special way. Like I believe that
Yeah.
God has designed you for purpose and on for a reason. So that means your brain might be a little bit different, and that's okay. So
Yeah.
even just like in our homes, like the way that we talk about each and other needs, whether it's behavioral or it's intellectual or it's physical, like that sets
hmm
our kids up. I think we have a lot of impact in that influence. Would you say
Right.
that some of that conversation at parents, like again, just recently
Yeah.
diagnosed? Yeah. How do you project that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think just looking at every single scenario and knowing that it's going to look differently for you, but that different is okay. And I think that we just need to train our kids to think that way. Like if you don't do good in math, but your reading's your thing, like why do we have to be good at everything? And really there's
Mm,
this schooling system, but the schooling system was never supposed to hit every child. It was just supposed to hit a percentage of children. And so the kids that fall outside that box, they aren't lesser. They aren't going to be less
mm-hmm,
successful. So take what you're good
mm-hmm.
at and run with that. I mean, there's that thing where they say if you ask a fish to climb a tree, they're going to look like a failure, right? Well, they're
Exactly. And that was
not. I
Einstein, right? Like I think
think
Einstein
so.
even
I think
said
it was
that.
Einstein. Yeah. But so it's like, you don't, why do we expect our kids to be across the board? Because it's our difference that's going to change the world. And so we just need to find that little sweet spot of what they're good at and what they can do and run with that. I
Mm,
mean, we switched schools for my daughter in middle school because I recognize the fact that, okay, she needs a smaller environment. It's not that she can't do it. She just needs a little bit more attention here and a little bit more attention here. So just really trying to do your best within the systems that you have, but then adjusting it for your child and their difference.
yeah. Yeah. I think that goes into the school. I have so much respect for teachers and the
hmm
goals that they have for our kids. But I think that when you have 30 students in this room trying to learn and they are at different levels of abilities, like it's an impossible task. So yeah, that is frustrating. But we have great teachers out there that are doing
Yeah.
the good work and putting
Oh, I
in the
mean,
effort, right?
it's beautiful whenever you find somebody that invests, especially in your child that is different, and encourages them. I mean, teachers really do have the ability to change the trajectory of these kiddos' lives. And we've had so many wonderful, wonderful teachers along the way. So,
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I agree. Same with my kiddos. It's like my daughter, my oldest, wants to become a teacher because of the experiences she has had. And school hasn't
mhm.
been easy for her, but she has been blessed by those that advocate for her
Yeah,
and walk
yeah,
alongside her. Yeah, that's good. So I would love for the mamas to get a hold of you and dads too. Like, how can they get
absolutely.
your information and like learn more about what you guys are doing?
Yeah, it's just very simple, labeledandloved.org. And
Okay.
we have sisterhood circles. So it's been really an exciting time of growth for us. We have, of course, our Weekend of Hope retreat, which is in Memphis, from September 27th to 29th this year. And so we have mamas come in from 36 different states and several different countries. We had two moms come all the way from Guam last year
Oh,
to our
wow.
retreat. So it was like a 14-hour plane ride. I was so excited and impressed of that's how much they need this. And so
Yes.
then we also have sisterhood circles, and they're popping up all over the nation in different cities in person, and then we have virtual ones online. We have also, as a part of sisterhood circles, faith and friendship groups too, because faith is really a big issue with special needs families, because there's a lot that comes up in that. And so we kind of walk through that together as well. So we have virtual groups, in-person groups, and those all meet monthly. And then even if you can't get together, we have something called Sticky Notes for the Heart. And that's just a little text of encouragement that comes to your phone. You just sign up on our website for it and it comes. And we just want to remind each and every mom that they are loved and thought of every single day.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so great. So you're talking about getting together, but there's also things you can do within your community and then every day as
Hmm.
well. So, Julie, thank you
Yeah.
so much for having this conversation with me today. I know it's going to be a blessing and encourage a lot of parents out there that, feel like maybe they're doing it on their own. And now they know they don't have to. So this is
Yeah.
great. Thanks for
Yeah.
joining me.
Exactly. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Hey guys, I'm sure that you enjoyed that conversation with Julie. I know that I certainly did. I have been blessed again to have friendships with parents who have special needs kids. And I have seen some of the struggles that they have gone through to find community, because people that have kids that maybe are more able-bodied or the different needs, like we can't relate to some of the experiences that they have. And so I was just so thankful that Julie has this organization that she can connect individuals to one another to share their stories, because there is something about being known and seen that is so powerful. And so just having this opportunity to share this with you so that you can share this with your communities and just walk alongside people that are in the season of life that they're in. So let's talk a little bit about the takeaways that I have. And this goes not only for those mamas out there that have special needs, but that goes for us as well, just as parents in general. One of the things that I love about her statements is that we can focus on what our kids can do. How often have you found that you have had conversations with your kids about the do nots and the things that they have done wrong? Instead, we could flip the script and we could start talking about what can my kids do that are able-bodied, that they can walk through the positive of their day-to-day, so that we have that mind shift, that we're only focusing on the positive, and that's encouraging to our kids. If we focus only on the negative, things that they can't do, how discouraging that can be, not only to us as parents, but also to our children. So just being mindful of focusing on what they can do. We can still grieve the things that they can't, right? I think that is so important that parents need to recognize we always will struggle with grief, because our expectations when we became a parent was probably pretty big, right? We anticipated our kids were going to have the normal life. They were going to go through all the developmental milestones that were necessary to move on and be healthy adults. That's not always the case for our kids. So grieving the fact that our kids will maybe not adjust to our expectations, but that they are capable of other things. And in fact, let's just acknowledge the fact that we believe that God has preordained this life for our kids. He has created them with purpose and for a reason. And we may not be aware of that, and we may think that we have a different plan for them, but I believe that God loves my kids even more than I do. So he's going to have good things in store for them. So focus on what they can do instead of what they can't. Another good takeaway, and I think this can go across the board for all of us parents, is stop caring about what other parents think. I mean, how many people just need to hear that on mantra right now, especially those that are trying to take their kids out in public and your kid is in full-blown meltdown. Julie talked about how instead of focusing on what other parents think, I'm focusing on what does my child need right now from me. That could be a totally different paradigm shift in the way that you're parenting. So talk to your kids about, what can I do to support you well with that? If they're able to talk. If not, you should be able to figure out that my child is in the middle of a meltdown and maybe what they need is to jump around in a booth. Absolutely. Don't focus on the opinions of other parents. Instead, focus on what is best for your own kid. So I love that. So now for my final takeaway, find community. I love that she emphasizes community being so paramount in raising our kids. We can't be doing this alone. And it doesn't matter if you have special needs kids or well-bodied, able-bodied kids, right? We have to be in community. That's the way that we're designed, because we're going to get tired, we're going to get frustrated, and we can allow other people to speak into our kids' life. So funny story from today, actually. I am blessed to have one of my dearest friends work at the high school that my kids attend. And so my children, one of my daughters sent me a text today saying she was having such a rough day and she couldn't navigate it. She was so stressed out, she actually went to the nurse, and the nurse indicated that her blood pressure was actually elevated. So y'all, this was a stress that my child was experiencing. So I sent the text to my friend and said, Kim, can you go visit her in the nurse's office? And she was able to. And my friend Kim was able then to talk with my daughter in such a way and hear wisdom and comfort and love in a way that I couldn't provide in that moment for her. But more importantly, she has another adult in her life that she knows that she can go to when things get hard. That to me is a huge blessing. So we as parents get to choose what's the community we want to surround our kids with. I have been blessed with this friendship and many others, but I've had to be very intentional about who am I exposing my kids to? Who am I investing my time with my friends? I have limited time. I'm sure you do too. Our kids are in activities. We have full-time jobs. But we have time to be social with friends. So who are we allowing to be in our life, speaking life into our kids, our marriages, our relationships? So be intentional. Find the right community for you and your family. And I promise you, there's going to be a moment where you're going to give them a call and be like, what are we going to do with this kid? Because it happens to me more often than not. But I know I'm never left alone, and I'm going to be able to be encouraged and supported. So friends, that's today's episode. I hope that it brought you encouragement, hope, and maybe some steps that you can take in your day-to-day life. Now, continue to join us, because every week I get to have incredible conversations with experts and people that are living life in such a way that I want to learn from. And I certainly want to share that wisdom with you. So join me next week for another incredible episode of Embracing Your Season.